All right, so you've been working hard. You've learned the strategies, you've practiced the techniques, and you've probably recorded yourself speaking more times than you can count. But there's always that one big question hanging in the air, isn't there? Well, today we're going to answer it. What does a high-scoring answer really sound like? Not in a textbook, not in theory, but in a real test with a real examiner. We're going to pull back the curtain and really listen in on what examiners are truly looking for. And I'll tell you right now, it is almost certainly not what you think it is. You know, most of the pressure and stress students feel comes from chasing the completely wrong target. And when you're chasing the wrong target, you end up putting in a ton of effort, but it feels like you're just wandering around, practicing without a clear map of where you're actually supposed to be going. Does this whole cycle feel a little too familiar? You speak, you hit record, you listen back, and you just repeat. I call it the blind practice loop. And the problem is, you're judging your own speaking without knowing what the examiner actually hears. You don't know what specific things get rewarded and what little habits are quietly pulling your score down. Well, this explainer, this is going to be your map. So, let's start by redefining our destination. Let's talk about what high-band speaking really, truly means inside that test room. Now, this slide right here basically flips our expectations upside down. See, high-band speaking is not about being perfect. It's not about using a bunch of fancy $5 words or being completely error-free. Instead, the goal is to be clear, controlled, well-paced, and to have a natural, logical structure to your answers. It's a completely different game. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. Your goal is not to be impressive. It's to be stable. You want to show the examiner that you are in full control of the language you're using, even when the pressure's on. Okay, so how do we measure something like stability? Well, lucky for us, IELTS gives us the exact framework. We just need to learn how to use it. So let's look at your speaking through the same four lenses the examiner uses. And here they are, the Big Four. Fluency and coherence, how your ideas flow. Lexical resource, your vocabulary. Grammatical range and accuracy. And finally, pronunciation. Everything you say, every single word is being filtered through these four criteria. So this is the crucial mindset shift you need to make. When you listen back to your recordings, you have to stop asking, did I like how that sounded? And start asking, okay, how did I perform against these four criteria? That is how you finally start practicing with a map. Okay, that's enough theory for now. Let's see and hear what this difference actually sounds like in the real world, with a couple of super clear examples. Okay, so here's a pretty typical low-band answer you might hear in part 1. Notice how it's really short, super repetitive, and it doesn't develop the idea at all. I mean, it's technically correct, sure, but it shows a very, very limited ability. Now compare that to this. It answers the question, and then it just adds a simple because. It extends the thought just enough to make it a complete idea. That's it. And look at what's not in that better answer. There are no huge vocabulary words. There's no complex grammatical drama. It is simply a clear, controlled, and complete thought. That is the difference. This difference gets even more obvious in part 2 with the cue card. A lower band response often feels rushed, like they're just listing off the bullet points and then they stop early. But a high band response has a clear structure. It moves smoothly between ideas and keeps a calm, controlled pace. It shows your thinking, not just listing. And for that tricky part 3, there's a really simple, trainable structure that high-scoring candidates use all the time.
First, you state your opinion. Then, you give a reason for it. And finally, you back it up with a quick example or explain a consequence. Simple, structured, and most importantly, stable.
This table really brings it all together, doesn't it? Just look at the jump from a band 6 to a 7. Fluency goes from hesitant to stable. Vocabulary goes from repetitive to varied but safe. Notice that safe, not necessarily advanced. Grammar gets a mix of simple and complex, and pronunciation shifts from rushed to clear and calm. It's all about consistency, not magic tricks.
And this is so important to remember. Everybody makes small mistakes. The test doesn't punish the mistake itself nearly as much as it punishes the panic that comes after it. High band speakers might make a little grammar slip or pause for a second, but they just recover smoothly and keep going. Their fluency doesn't fall apart. So, as we start to wrap this up, let's lock in this final powerful mindset. The key to a high band score isn't about being fast or flashy, it's about being steady. Let's be crystal clear about this. High band speaking is not about some innate talent you're born with. It's not about having a specific accent, and it's definitely not about faking a confident personality. It is a skill built on awareness of the criteria, control over your language, and the calm repetition of good, structured habits. And here's the final truth, the one that should hopefully take all the pressure off your shoulders. A band 7, 8, or even 9 speaking performance, it doesn't actually sound all that special to the average person listening. It just sounds steady. It sounds clear, organized, and controlled. It sounds reliable. And that is the real sound of success in the IELTS speaking test. And you know, the best news of all is that steady is something you can train for. You can build it, you can practice it, and you can make it your new normal. You have the map now. It's no longer some big mystery. It's a system, and it is a system that you can absolutely master.